dumping my lunch down the dumper every day for almost an entire week now, right?
Sonny, you and I have a relationship that is trusting.
And the police was chasing the muggers, sort of like a ghetto marathon.
Television in the 1980s followed a formula. The same 3 cameras, the same living room sets, the same rhythm of setup and punchline. Critics called it lazy. Every week, millions of us showed up because we knew exactly what we were getting. Here are the shows that proved it. Mork and Mindy wrote entirely on Robin Williams doing what Robin Williams did best. The show gave him a character who didn't understand Earth customs, which meant he could riff on everything from handshakes to emotions, while Pam Dauber played the straight role with remarkable patience. What people forget is how physical the show was. Williams was bouncing off furniture, contorting his face, using his whole body as punctuation. The show's ratings were massive in the beginning, then dropped as the network kept moving it around the schedule and adding characters nobody asked for, including Jonathan Winters as Mork's child, which made no sense even by alien logic. Taxi was centered on a Manhattan cab company where nobody actually wanted to be driving a cab. They were all waiting for something better. Bobby wanted to be an actor. Elaine wanted to move up in the art world. Tony was a boxer who'd taken too many hits. The genius was that the show let them keep waiting. Most sitcoms would have given them their big break by season 3. Taxi let them stay stuck, and that's what made it real. The ensemble was stacked. Judd Hirsch, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd doing his Reverend Jim character, Andy Kaufman playing Latka with an accent nobody could place. Louis De Palma was mean, and he stayed mean. The garage felt like a place where people actually worked. The show got canceled, then picked up, then canceled again. Even the show itself couldn't catch a break. Three's Company was built entirely on a misunderstanding that somehow sustained 172 episodes. Jack pretended to be gay so the landlord would let him live with 2 women. And every single plotline spun out from people overhearing half a conversation and jumping to the wrong conclusion. John Ritter was pratfalling his way through scenes with commitment that made the silly plots work. Joyce DeWitt played Janet as the sensible one. Suzanne Summers was Chrissy, the blonde audiences underestimated, until she asked for equal pay and got written off the show in a contract dispute that became more dramatic than anything in the scripts. The comedy was never subtle. The laughs were loud, the situations were absurd, and none of it was trying to be anything other than 30 minutes of watching attractive people get into low-stakes trouble. Critics hated it. Audiences made it a top 10 show for years. Soap started in 1977 and immediately caused controversy, which was probably the point. It was a parody of daytime soap operas, but it aired at night and dealt with things network television wasn't supposed to touch, such as affairs, sexuality, possession, murder plots, amnesia, organized crime, alien abduction. The show opened every episode with a narrator recapping the chaos. Billy Crystal played Jody, one of the first openly gay main characters on television, and religious groups tried to get the show pulled before it even aired. But while it lasted, it proved a sitcom could have a serialized story, could tackle uncomfortable topics, could kill off characters and bring them back and make you care both times. It was messy and strange and unafraid, and it's the kind of show that couldn't exist now because no one would know how to market it. Benson was a spin-off of Soap, taking Robert Guillaume's character from one show's chaos and dropping him into a different kind of mess as the head of household for a bumbling governor. The show started as a workplace comedy about competence surrounded by incompetence, with Benson as the only adult in a mansion full of people who couldn't organize a lunch meeting. But as it went on, the show gave Benson more power. He became budget director, then lieutenant governor, and that shift from servant to politician happened so gradually you barely noticed. Guillaume played Benson with dignity and wit, never letting the character become a punchline, even when the scripts leaned that way. The show ran 7 seasons and built toward Benson running for governor himself. And the final episode ended with an election too close to call. They never told us who won. The screen cut to black mid-celebration, and that was it. That ending was frustrating and still talked about by people who wanted closure and never got it. If you've made it this far, do me a favor and hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment with the first show that comes to mind when you think about 1980s TV. I'd love to know what you were watching when life felt a little simpler. WKRP in Cincinnati centered on a struggling AM radio station trying to stay relevant by switching to rock and roll. The humor came from the culture clash, a station manager who didn't understand music, a program director who cared too much, a news director who took himself too seriously, and DJ personalities who ranged from smooth-talking Venus Flytrap to the manic energy of Dr. Johnny Fever. What made WKRP work week to week was how lived in it felt. The characters genuinely seemed to like each other. It was a workplace comedy that understood workplaces are mostly people killing time between the moments that matter. Diff'rent Strokes followed two black children from Harlem adopted by a wealthy white widower in Manhattan. Arnold's "What you talking about, Willis?" became a national catchphrase. Gary Coleman was 8 when the show started, and his timing was sharper than most adult actors working at the time. The show dealt with race more directly than most sitcoms would, though it did so within the safe boundaries of a family sitcom, where problems got solved and lessons got learned. What's harder to talk about now is what happened after. The way child stardom chewed up the young actors and spit them out into financial trouble, legal trouble, early deaths. The show was warm and well-meaning while it aired, but the aftermath casts a shadow that's hard to ignore. One Day at a Time was one of the first sitcoms to center on a divorced mother raising 2 daughters alone. That was radical at the time, and the show didn't shy away from it. Ann Romano wasn't waiting for a man to come fix her life. She was working, dating, arguing with her mother, and trying to figure out how to raise teenagers who didn't make it easy. Bonnie Franklin played Anne with a mix of exhaustion and determination that felt authentic, and Valerie Bertinelli and Mackenzie Phillips played her daughters as actual individuals. The show tackled serious topics, but it never felt preachy. The building superintendent, Schneider, was the comic relief, but even he had depth. The show's longevity came from the fact that it didn't rush. It let Anne struggle. It let the daughters make mistakes and not learn their lesson in 22 minutes. The Facts of Life followed a group of girls at a boarding school under the supervision of house mother Edna Garrett. The first season had a large cast, but by season 2 it narrowed to 4 girls. Blair, the rich snob, Joe, the tomboy from the Bronx, Natalie, the writer, and Tootie, the youngest. That core 4 carried the show for years. They were stuck together, and that tension kept things interesting. Charlotte Rae played Mrs. Garrett with warmth and wisdom. The show aged with its characters. They graduated high school, went to college, and started careers. By the end, they were running a catering business together, and the show was still finding things for them to argue about. It was formulaic, absolutely, but it was also consistent. Barney Miller took place almost entirely in a single room, the detective squad room of a Greenwich Village police precinct. The show was a workplace comedy with no laugh track, which was unusual, and it treated its characters like actual people doing a difficult job with limited resources. Hal Linden played Captain Miller as calm, competent, and perpetually exhausted. The detectives under him were a mix of personalities: Wojo, the idealist; Harris, the aspiring writer; Dietrich, the intellectual; Fish, the old-timer who eventually got his own spin-off. The criminals who came through were quirky, and the show had a way of finding humanity in absurd situations. The humor was conversational, the pacing was patient, and the show's writing was sharp. Let me know in the comments, which of these shows do you still stop and watch when you find it on TV? And here's something worth thinking about. These shows didn't rush. They let characters sit in silence, let conversations breathe. Modern television forgot how to do that. Good Times was the first sitcom to focus on a black family living in a Chicago housing project. The show centered on the Evans family, Florida and James trying to hold things together, their 3 kids navigating poverty with humor and hope. The show was groundbreaking in its premise, but it's also remembered for how it shifted focus. JJ, the oldest son, became the breakout character with his catchphrase, "Dynamite!" and his cartoonish personality, and the show leaned into that even as cast members pushed back. John Amos, who played James, left the show after clashing over the direction, and his character was killed off. The show continued, but it became something different. It seemed less grounded, more focused on JJ's antics. Still, it showed a family that loved each other, struggled with real issues, and didn't have easy answers. Evening Shades starred Burt Reynolds as Wood Newton, a former football player turned high school coach in a small Arkansas town. The show focused on small town life, marriage, fatherhood, and community. The cast was stacked with veterans from Charles Durning, Hal Holbrook, and Elizabeth Ashley, and the show had a nostalgic quality even when it was airing. It was the kind of program designed to make you feel like life was simpler. The whole thing felt like sitting on a porch in the evening with nothing pressing to do. It wasn't memorable, and it just tried to be pleasant. The Golden Girls brought together 4 older women sharing a house in Miami. The show was sharp, funny, and unafraid to let its characters be sexual, flawed, and complicated. Dorothy was the sarcastic one. Blanche was the Southern belle with an active dating life. Rose was sweet and naive. And Sophia was the mother who said whatever she wanted. The chemistry between them was undeniable, and the show balanced humor with real emotion. The cheesecake scenes in the kitchen became iconic with 4 women sitting around the table at night, talking through their problems. The show was a hit, a cultural phenomenon, and it proved that a sitcom centered on older women could be funny, smart, and commercially successful. Bosom Buddies starred Tom Hanks and Peter Scolari as 2 men who dressed as women to live in an affordable women-only apartment building. The humor came from the absurdity of the situation and the lengths the characters went to maintain the charade. The show introduced Tom Hanks to a national audience, and even though it only lasted 2 seasons, it's remembered fondly by people who watched it. It was silly, it was lightweight, and it didn't pretend to be more than it was. Square Pegs followed 2 misfit girls trying to navigate high school and fit in with the popular crowd. Sarah Jessica Parker played one of the leads, and the show had a quirky, offbeat tone that was ahead of its time. It didn't condescend to teenagers, and it didn't pretend high school was easy or that everyone finds their place. The show was canceled after 1 season due to low ratings, but it developed a cult following and is remembered as one of the more honest depictions of adolescent awkwardness. It didn't get the chance to grow, but it's the kind of show people remember fondly because it tried to be different. These shows didn't fail because they were simple. They succeeded because they were. Every week we knew what we were getting. Familiar faces, predictable rhythms, problems that got solved before the credits rolled. The characters started to feel like extended family. Television was a shared experience, something we talked about at work the next day because we'd all watch the same thing at the same time. So here's my question for you. What's one show from this era that you think modern TV could never recreate? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you want more deep dives into classic television and the culture we grew up with, subscribe. There's plenty more to talk about.